Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Welcome from Facebook, X, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, and if I set it up correctly, also Rumble. Welcome everyone. Glad you're here tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about urban collapse and the 9 pillars of preparedness. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to try to keep up with comments as much as I can, but we have a lot of notes. I have about 11 pages worth of notes. There's definitely a lot to talk about tonight, and hopefully you're going to have a good time. What happens when the systems we rely on collapse? I'm not talking about a snowstorm knocking out power for a few hours, or even a couple days, or even a week. I mean real collapse. No power, no water, no food supply, no rule of law. Most people assume, it'll be a few days of chaos, and then help will arrive. But war games, history, modern-day case studies tell us something very, very different. Help doesn't come. In fact, the longer the collapse lasts, the worse it gets. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through a 30-day urban collapse scenario. Not fantasy, but based on real-world data from events like Venezuela's grid down, Hurricane Katrina, even the 1977 New York blackout. We're not going to get into those specific events in a lot of detail. And we're going to talk about advanced war games like Dark Winter and Cyber Polygon. For those of you who've never heard of the war game or simulation Dark Winter and Cyber Polygon, Dark Winter, I believe it was June 2001. It was organized by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in collaboration with the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the Department of Defense. The scenario in Dark Winter was a bioterror attack using smallpox in 3 U.S. cities. What was the purpose? To test the U.S. response to systems in a fast-moving, large-scale biological crisis. The key takeaways from Dark Winter were the collapse of the healthcare systems occurred in less than 10 days. Information warfare and public panic spread faster than the disease. Martial law was considered by day 6 due to civil unrest. Local and federal resource competition became very fierce as cities began hoarding vaccines and medical staff. Supply chains broke down rapidly, affecting food, fuel, and medicine distribution. There was no clear leadership, not federal, state, or local agencies. They were all clashing over authority and decision-making. What's the relevance to preparedness today? Well, Dark Winter, the war game, didn't really happen, proved even how a single vector of crisis, the biological factor, could trigger a chain of failures, medical, logistical, political, and social. In an actual event, these failures wouldn't stay confined. They'd cascade into communications, food access, security, civil stability, essentially touching on every one of the 9 pillars of preparedness. Cyber Polygon started in 2020, and I believe it's still going on. It's still something that they're actively looking at. Organized by, you guessed it, the World Economic Forum, and in partnership, I believe, with the cybersecurity subsidiary of Cyberbank. That's SBER Bank, not spelled out S or CYBER. The scenario was a global cyber attack targeting financial systems, supply chains, and internet infrastructure. What was the purpose? Well, to basically simulate how a digital pandemic could cripple global infrastructure and to train multinational corporations and governments to respond. What Cyber Polygon really simulates: banking systems failing in a cascading fashion due to targeted ransomware, power grids being shut down by zero-day vulnerabilities, supply chains being paralyzed by corrupt or inaccessible software infrastructure, public panic triggered by the loss of access to ATMs, mobile payment apps, and online retailers. Massive misinformation campaigns causing chaos and distrust. The key lessons: the digital world is now pretty much the backbone of every physical system, at least in the United States. A single breach can trigger a real-world collapse. No food, no fuel, no meds, no money. And some of the cyber attacks that happen on a daily basis from some very large organizations that are constantly trying to figure out how to get into our systems are pretty crazy. And the government spent a lot of time and effort trying to combat this literally every single day. Response time is measured in minutes, not days, and most cities and nations are not prepared for a major cyber attack. Cyber attacks don't just disable, they divide. As trust collapses, communities fracture, and the prepared may stand alone. What's the relevance to urban collapse scenarios? Well, if cyber polygon plays out in reality, it would mirror an EMP, high-altitude EMP or a grid-down scenario, except it would be worse. Why? Because everything would fail simultaneously. No power, no comms, no GPS potentially, no water pressure, no money. Police radios will fail, 911 doesn't work, ATMs get emptied. Hospitals can't run life-saving machines or track medications. This is the modern-day digital Pearl Harbor type scenario. And most people are still thinking and acting like it's 1995. When you combine Dark Winter with Cyber Polygon, you realize something. The threat isn't just biological, and it's not just cyber. It's cascading collapse. If one system fails, generally they pull down the rest of the system with it. This is why the 9 pillars of preparedness are more relevant than ever. You guys have heard me talk about the Core 4, the Core 5. You've heard other people and companies talk about, the 5 C's, the 10 C's, and all that stuff's amazing. What are the 9 pillars of preparedness? Well, they're not just categories, they're lines of defense. I believe I came up with this new phrase last night, the 9 pillars of preparedness. I Googled it to be sure I wasn't stealing it from someone else. Just in case, I may have heard it somewhere before and don't remember. But from what I found, I think it's original. So I'm going to stick with the 9 pillars of preparedness. Because when I talked about, 8 critical points in survival the other night, self-defense is a pretty critical point in survival. So I wanted to add that to it, and then 9 pillars of preparedness just kind of hit me. All right, before we move on, I'm just going to check the comments real quick. Make sure that we're good. I'm assuming my audio is good because nobody's mentioned it in the multi-stream chat that it's bad. So I'm going to keep moving forward. All right, so we're going to break this down day by day. We're going to go over essentially a 30-day scenario with complete urban collapse. We're going to go through each phase, and we're going to talk about how to survive using the 9 pillars of preparedness. Those pillars: shelter, fire, water, food, medical, communications, land navigation, signaling, and personal protection. Phase 1, which I would call 0 hour on day 1. I call it the shock phase. It's 8:12 p.m., lights flicker, then darkness. You check your breaker. Doesn't seem to be any problem there. You step outside, your entire street is out. But it's not just your street. There's no cell data, no internet. Your phone's not working. You try to turn on the radio, it's just static. The power's down across the entire grid. A lot of people may not realize that at first. This is called 0 hour. People are going to be confused, annoyed. Most assume it's temporary. But behind the scenes, communication satellites have been spoofed and critical banking systems are offline. This is the type of scenario modeled in Cyber Polygon, a simulated cyber attack launched by the global institutions to study cascading failures. And it showed if the banking collapse digitally, the food distribution could shut down within 24 hours. Well, the Dark Winter scenario we talked about went even deeper. It showed how panic spreads faster than any virus. Martial law wasn't triggered until over 1 million deaths occurred in the scenario. And by then, it was far too late. So the 9-pillar focus: communication. Do you have an emergency radio? Do you have a solar charger? Do you have a solar generator? Do you have ham radio knowledge? Do you have the equipment? Do you have Faraday and EMP bags to protect your electronics in case these things happen? What about shelter? How well does your home retain heat and cool without power? Do you have any alternate means to heat or cool your house, especially if you're in extreme temperatures where it's very hot or it's super cold in the middle of the winter? What about signaling? Just basic. Do you have safe light sources that won't draw attention in your house? Do you have blackout curtains maybe in case you need them? Remember, tonight we're talking about urban. So if you're in a bigger city, this is really going to apply to you more than it would if you live in the middle of nowhere and you're much more rural. Day 1 ends in an eerie silence. People light candles. The city glows with firelight instead of power. Just going to flip to the comments real quick, because reading my notes, I can't see them. All right, so phase 2, day 2 through 5. The panic window is what I called it. By day 2, it's clear. This isn't temporary. Grocery stores are mobbed, shelves wiped clean. Gas stations are dry, ATMs are dead, people without cash, well, they're out of luck. Water pressure starts to drop. Toilets stop flushing. People begin to panic. Fires break out from improper generator use and candle accidents. 911 is no longer responding. Emergency responders are staying home to protect their own families. Fires start to spread rapidly throughout the city. The 9-pillar focus there, water. Do you have stored water or rain collection? Know how to filter it? You're probably not going to have rain collection if you're living in the city, so you need to have enough stored water and water filtration. But if you can't get water out of the tap, you have nothing to filter. So you need to make sure you have some type of water storage. What about medical? Are you able to handle burns, cuts, dehydration? Do you have trauma gear, antibiotics? Do you even have training? Not just first aid training, but do you have trauma care, tourniquets, chest seals, Israeli pressure dressings, how to pack a wound with gauze? Those are pretty much the basics when it comes to trauma. What about fire? Can you cook safely indoors? Do you even know how to prevent carbon monoxide buildup? Are you able to cook outside? By day 5, looting begins. Not just at the stores, at homes. People are watching, listening, they're targeting. Starting with those who they see as the least threatening. Let's roll it back real quick, because I want to talk about something before we move on to the next phase. By day 4, we're seeing it. The cracks aren't just forming, they're widening. Grocery store shelves are picked clean. People are fighting over gas. Social media goes dark. This is the point where cities start turning from stressful to unsurvivable. And if you haven't made your way out of there by now, it may already be too late. Get out while you still can. The urban exit window. There's a narrow window, usually between the first 24 to 48, potentially 96 hours, depending on exactly what happened, where those who are watching the signs can slip out of the city before the roads clog, before your fuel's going to run dry, or before checkpoints start going up. After that, you might not be escaping. You're bugging in. And that's a whole different game. Now, if you have a pace plan and you're going to an alternate location, you're still going to be bugging in. But if you're in a major city and it's a major event, especially a grid down type of event, you really need to get out of there. What happens after day 4? Well, traffic's going to bottleneck in pretty much all directions, especially near interstates and bridges. Law enforcement is going to begin controlling movement or even closing roads. Fuel is going to become a choke point. Stations are going to be empty or even potentially guarded. Rural towns are going to start pushing outsiders away. You're not just traveling. You're now an invader if you don't know people in those rural towns, and they may not let you there. The key to beating the collapse, well, that's pace planning. If you want to survive a full-blown collapse, you need more than just gear. You need a system. That system is PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So we're going to break it down in context of an evacuation. Your primary plan, leave at the first sign of systematic failure. Example, you see a rolling blackout and immediately cyber disruptions. You activate your bug-out plan before the panic hits. Pre-pack bug-out bags, full tank of gas, cached fuel, cached supplies, a known destination, whether it's rural land, family property, or off-grid safe house, according to your own personal pace plan that hopefully you have developed, and if you haven't, hopefully you're going to start developing it soon. Your alternate plan, leave on day 2 or 3 when the crowding starts. You notice stores are swamped. Gas is being rationed. Police presence, maybe even military, is increasing. You take a secondary route out of the city. Alternate highways, back roads mapped out, rendezvous with others who may be en route to your location if you're part of a group, possibly leaving on foot or a bike if your vehicle fails. Contingency plan, forced to leave during the chaos, which is not ideal. It's day 5 or 6, looting is common. Your neighborhood's no longer safe. You're in gray man mode, low visibility gear, no open carry unless you're rural. You're avoiding highways, you're trying to move at night. You're relying on caches or small resupply points so you're not burdened down with a ton of weight if you're trying to get out of a dangerous place very quickly. Your emergency plan, well, city's locked down, you have to shelter in place. Escape may no longer be possible. You're going to go into full-blown lockdown mode. Fortify your shelter, ration supplies for a month, which hopefully you already have, and prepare for intrusion attempts, fires, or even potentially raids. Geography matters, the urban-rural divide. The further you are from major urban cities, the better your odds. But not all rural areas are created equal. You need places that have water sources, lakes, wells, streams, concealment like forest and hills. Community, small towns can be hostile, or they can be lifelines, depending on if you've already set things up as part of your pace plan. Defensibility. You want natural choke points. You want elevation. You want pre-positioned gear as buried caches, friends' houses, bug-out shelters. So here's some tips for real evacuation success. Know all of your exit routes in all 4 cardinal directions. Run mock drills with your family and friends, and even time them to see how long it takes you to gather your gear and get on the road. Cache maps, fuel, water filters outside of the city. Don't do it in the city. You want to cache your items outside of the city. Establish code words and comms protocols for a group evac. Practice being invisible. Noise and light discipline. Gray man movement. Minimal digital trace. Now, of course, if the grid's down, you're probably not going to have a digital trace at all because nothing digital may be working. At the end of the day, your success or your failure is going to come down to one thing: whether you waited for someone to save you or you planned for pace and you saved yourself. Before we get on to phase 3, I'm just going to flip back to the comments. So the comments I keep seeing them and then they're disappearing. I don't know what's going on with stream chat. Oh, Marjorie Mahuda says hello all. Again, welcome everybody from all the different platforms. We are simulcasting on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, I think Rumble if I did it right, as well as TikTok. So welcome everyone. All right, phase 3. And if you just got to us and you came here late, don't worry. This live stream will be available on all the same platforms that you're watching it on now, as well as on Spotify as a video podcast. And that should be up either tonight or tomorrow. So phase 3, typically days 6 through 10. Infrastructure failure. By day 6, your city stinks. Well, maybe not New York City because that always kind of stinks. Trash is piling up. Sewer systems are failing. Rats and disease are going to soon to follow. Food's going to spoil in homes and stores. Then the black market starts. Bartering replaces cash. Gangs may begin forming in certain neighborhoods, offering protection for a price. 9-pillar focus there. What about food? Can you ration? Do you have self-stable meals that don't need cooking? Is your pace plan in order? Is it actually in order? Personal protection. Can you defend your family? Do you have perimeter awareness? Are you trained? Are you actively training as often as you can? If you don't have the pew-pew, what other methods do you have for self-defense? Because certain cities, you may not be allowed to have certain kinds of weapons, so you have to try to have other alternate methods. It's another part of PACE. Your PACE plan for self-defense should have layers and layers and layers. Shelter. Are you able to insulate or secure your home from human threats and exposure? It's going to depend on where you live. Are you in an apartment? Are you in a home, but still in a major metropolitan city, but maybe you have a better chance than someone in a, 50-story apartment building? People are going to start moving in groups. Power structures are going to start to form. Trust is going to start to die. Phase 4, day 11 through 20. The rule of force is what I called it. Now it's about power. Whoever has food, medicine, or the muscle is going to control the streets. Hospitals are empty and overrun. Emergency shelters are at capacity. The government hasn't shown up. You're on your own. Home invasions become common. If you light a fire or you cook food, you could become a beacon to the people looking for food and water and shelter and light. Some neighborhoods may become fortresses, and hopefully if you're in one of those neighborhoods, you do have a good group plan together and you could try to become one of those fortresses. Others are going to end up being ghost towns. So the 9-pillar focus here, signaling. How are you communicating silently with allies? Flashlights, flags, movement. Have you formed a local group at all to help defend each other? Land navigation. Can you move between locations without GPS? Do you have paper maps? Do you have topo maps once you get out of the city? If you don't have a proper pace plan set up, you might not have any of this stuff. Even if you just have street maps, in a tri-state area, and a public campground, anything to try to get to an alternate location where you can stock some emergency gear. You have to start planning now to make things easier, because if you try to do this after some kind of a big event, it's most likely going to be too late. So by day 20, you're either part of a group or you are completely self-reliant. The rest have either fled or fallen. Phase 5, which would be day 21 through 30, the new normal. By now, you've settled into a routine, or you've settled into chaos. The weak are starving, the unprepared are begging, and the prepared, hopefully you've adapted. If you followed the 9 pillars, or if you follow the 9 pillars, you're probably still going to be alive, depending on your situation. Maybe even thriving. You secured your shelter, you're rotating food, you're filtering water, you have a plan. You were ready for this. You didn't listen to what your family said when they said, oh, you're crazy, you're doing this stuff for nothing, you're wasting money. You're going to be the one that's prepared. But remember, it's also going to make you a target. So you can't be in an area with people that are not part of your group and everyone knows that you have all these supplies. So please work on your PACE plan. Have a primary, an alternate, a contingency, and an emergency plan. I cannot stress that enough. It's going to be very, very important. 12 on TikTok says, will this be uploaded later or is this already available? So we are live right now, and when this is over, I don't think it'll be live on TikTok after the live stream, but it will be as soon as the live stream ends. It's available on Facebook and X and YouTube, possibly Rumble. I don't know if it saves on there. And then it'll also be on Spotify either tonight or tomorrow. Thanks, 12, for that question. I appreciate it. Let me go back to the other comments. Here we go. Now I can see them. Rabbit Peanut, I get urban and rural. What's your overall spidey sense when it comes to suburban areas? What are some of the most critical aspects of unnecessary, dense, but not empty zones? So a lot of suburban areas, if they're especially close to bigger, more populated areas, I don't think they're going to be that much better because you're not going to have to travel very far from the cities, and that's where you're going to filter through if you're roaming and looking for food and water and safety. So I guess there's a lot of factors. It really depends on where you live. And if you're suburban, you might have a better chance at knowing who all your neighbors are. So you may have a better chance of perimeter defense and getting a really good group together and fighting off any potential invaders that are coming from the bigger cities. So that's something that people should really be looking into, is creating a community, really getting to know your neighbors. David Werner, good evening. Good evening to you, David. Rabbit Peanut says, which rule becomes more paramount in your mind essentially when there is a medium dense environment? Do groups become critical? Oh, sorry. I guess I technically already answered that. But yes, groups are 1,000% going to become ultra critical. And I think no matter where you are, even rural, because rural, you're out there, you may not have a lot of people in your defense. You really should try to have a group, even if you're more rural, because there will be people that try to come out to the rural areas. And you need to be able to stop them. You need to have 360-degree protection at all times. And you're not going to do that without a group. You just can't provide that type of security by yourself. Marjorie says, learn how to cook without power is important. Had to do it during the ice storm for a couple of weeks. Yes, that's very critical, especially if you're in a city. You may not, especially if you're on a high-rise apartment, you're going to have a really difficult time trying to figure out how to do some of this stuff. You're really going to have to take time and put together that PACE plan and put a lot of time and effort into it. So just remember, complacency kills. Do not be complacent. Stay focused on the 9 pillars of preparedness. Again, shelter, fire, water, food, medical, signaling, land nav, self-defense, communications. And when you're in this phase of this potential event, you're going ongoing shelter, fire, water, food. Those are your major. Are you rotating your supplies? Are you protecting your sources? Are you staying vigilant with training? Are you staying sharp? Physically and mentally. Survival is psychological as much as it is physical. Long-term comms and signals. Do you know what's happening in nearby cities or if help might be coming? Are you able to monitor events that are happening close to you? And if not, again, it goes back to groups. Do you have a group that have the ability to scout out areas safely and covertly to see what might be happening in other towns? You may run out of resources at some point, and hopefully you still have your alternate and your contingency locations set and ready to go. And hopefully they're more rural as you get further down your oh shit list. Marjorie Mahuda says they do make indoor small propane grills. You know, just be careful. Make sure you have a CO detector in your house for anything that you could be running to make sure that the levels of CO are not dangerous. The average permissible limit, let's say in construction, is about 50 parts per million when it comes to carbon monoxide, and that you don't want to really go over that. and I believe the numbers are, you could start to get headaches and dizziness if it's over 800. When it gets into a couple thousand, you could start having major issues. And if it's upwards of 10,000 plus, if I'm remembering this correctly, you could actually die very, very quickly from carbon monoxide poisoning. So just be really, really careful when you're cooking or doing anything indoors. And even in the winter, if your vents of your house are getting blocked by the snow, carbon monoxide, people die that way all the time because they're not clearing the vents. They're not making sure they're high enough off the ground. It happens more often than people think. So you really need to be careful. The city is no longer what it was. It's quieter, it's hungrier, and it's far more dangerous. And it's not just the criminals you have to worry about. It's everyday people. The ones who used to hold the door open for you at the gas station. The ones who used to wave to you from the porch. They used to coach your kid's soccer team. When starvation sets in, and especially when a parent sees their child crying from hunger, something primal takes over, and morality starts to shift. Desperation turns neighbors into threats. The lines between good and evil start to blur when survival is on the line. And in a city full of the unprepared, the transformation could spread like wildfire. You've all seen the things that have happened when there's basic blackouts. You know, people start looting and setting fires and acting crazy and attacking people. They do it very quickly. Sometimes it doesn't even take 24 hours for that to happen. Imagine if people realized, wait a minute, I have no power, I have no internet, I have no phone. Something else is happening here. 12 on TikTok says, where can I find on Spotify? So if you go to Spotify, just look up The Survival Summit, and you'll see our white logo with the two knives crossed. You can't miss it. We're definitely, I believe we're on Apple as well, Apple Podcast. I think we're on a bunch of different podcasts, but Spotify is the main one. Dean Daly says, somebody put those 9 in the chat. Actually, I can do that for you. Just give me a second. I'm going to copy and paste them from my notes so I don't have to type all this out, but I'm going to put the 9 pillars of preparedness in here. I just have to find where I had them listed because I'm super lazy and I really don't want to type them out again. Of course, they're a couple pages down. Oh, here we go. All right. Just give me 1 second. I'll throw these in the chat for you. All right, there you go, Dean. I'm going to throw them in the multi-stream chat as well, just in case you guys want them. Marjorie Mahuda says, knowing who to trust is so important, and that is absolutely vital, knowing who to trust. You don't just want to start groups with random strangers. That could be very, very dangerous. Rabbit Peanut says, this is the point. Whoops, sorry, some of these chats just went super speedy. And now I lost my place in the chat. Hold on. All right, this is the point where identifying threats based on body language and near or far communication become very important. That's an excellent point, Rabbit Peanut. That is deadly accurate. Marjorie says, know what you can eat in nature safely to give you strength, endurance, and nutrition. You really need to get into foraging because at some point your food supplies may dwindle no matter how prepared you are. Maybe you had to take in some refugees that were other family members or really close friends and you didn't want to just let them starve. Maybe they can help you. Or I don't know if I could turn family and friends away. I'm just not sure if I could do it. I don't know if I have it in me, to be honest. So that could be my downfall someday, but maybe not. But at the end of the day, I'll know that when I go to meet Jesus that I did the right thing and I tried to help as many people as I could. And if it cost me my life, then it cost me my life. That's at least the way I look at it. I know there's a lot of people who don't look at it that way, but this world is very short, and I think we need to do as much good as we can while we're still here. I don't share any of this stuff to scare you guys. I share this stuff because we've all seen how fragile our systems can be, how fast everything can fall apart, and I want you guys to be ready. The 9 pillars of preparedness, they're not just categories. They're how you survive. Day 1 to day 30 to day 365. Whether the collapse is cyber, viral, political, or another large-scale event like a massive solar flare, like the one that just missed us in 2012 that could have taken down the grid, you can definitely Google that because it was a very near miss. or high altitude EMP. Some people don't believe EMPs exist, and they're not specific EMP weapons, but a high altitude EMP is a nuclear detonation miles into the atmosphere that can shut down the grid in large swaths, and it can also cause the grid to cascade. They have been studying this and talking about this within the Pentagon and all sections of the government for many, many, many years. So I get a little annoyed when I hear people say that none of that stuff's fake, because they've been wargaming this stuff for a very long time. They almost got the grid hardened, or at least they almost got Congress and the Senate to start enacting things that would harden the grid during Trump's first term. I don't know what he's doing this term when it comes to that. Hopefully something, because after he was out of office, everyone ignored it and nobody wanted to do anything to harden the grid, mostly because those companies are private. And it actually wouldn't cost that much money to harden the entire grid. So I'm not entirely sure why they're not doing it. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Dean Daly says, what is signaling? So signaling would be signaling for rescue, or, like a flashlight or smoke grenades, things like that, or leaving, reflective tacks and markers if you're lost and you want people to try to find you and you have to move to a different spot. Or signal mirror, trying to catch, aerial like a plane or a helicopter. That's essentially part of signaling. And if you guys want to learn more about pace planning and all this type of stuff, you can get my book that came out in February, Pace Planning, Your Guide to Emergency Preparedness and Bug Out Strategies. That is available on the TikTok shop. It is also available on Amazon and on our website. And the link is in the bio for that. So don't wait. Don't assume. Train, prepare, and practice as often as possible. And when the rest of the world panics, maybe you'll still be standing. Make sure you guys check out thesurvivalsummit.com. Keep your skills sharp. Please don't be complacent. And don't let other people convince you that preparing is just a waste of time. And you don't fall into that mentality. Even if you're just going to do basic preparedness, shelter, fire, water, food, and medical, have extra food. Have different layers of extra food. You have perishables. You might have pasta. You might have canned food. You might have a lot of different things that you have stockpiled. Well, get some food-grade buckets, some oxygen absorbers, some Mylar bags, and start storing rice and pasta and sugar and salt for more long-term. If you want to put money into it, get some freeze-dried food. Most of those have a 25-year shelf life. And one of the favorite companies that I think, one of my favorites is My Patriot Supply. I'm sure there's others that you guys might like. Mountain House has good food. But I think the best bang for the buck right now is My Patriot Supply. But get your stuff wherever you want, wherever you've done the research to make sure you're getting good, dense, nutritious calories. You can make your own 5-year emergency rations, or you can buy, the SOS emergency rations that are good for about 5 years. I buy the bars, especially for bug out bags, and in my vehicle that are 3,600 calories. I typically get those on Amazon. You can order them direct through SOS as well. And there's a lot of other alternatives out there when it comes to food. When it comes to water, make sure you have a good filter. Again, if you live suburban or rural, definitely try to have a rain catchment system with 55-gallon drums. You can even get food-grade 55-gallon drums on Facebook Marketplace. Put them in your basement, especially if you live in an area where it doesn't freeze all the time. You could put them out in your garage. You could put them out in your yard. Yes, you could treat them so they last for about 5 years, but if you have filters, you don't need to worry about treating them with bleach or treating them with other commercially available water treatment systems. You can use filters. I like the Grail GeoPress, Sawyer Mini. Practical Survival has a really good straws on TikTok. You obviously should always have something to boil water. So I have the single wall stainless steel bottle, which this is the one by Pathfinder. There's a lot of great brands out there. And these are 32 ounces. So if you have water, if you have the pills that'll basically, clean the water for you. I don't really like those because you have to wait about 30 minutes. They don't taste that good. So I like to go with filters like the Grail GeoPress or the Sawyer Mini or the Sawyer Micro Squeeze, and always have the single wall stainless steel bottle. Why not the double wall insulated bottles? Because those can actually explode when you put them on the fire. You're creating that double wall system is creating an issue. Some guys have said before, well, just poke holes, drill holes in the outside layer. Don't do that. You don't know for sure if you're going to relieve the pressure enough, and you really don't want a bottle exploding in your face at the campfire. So just get a single wall stainless steel bottle or use the pots and pans from your house to boil water. You know, there's situations where they'll have, even without a big event, they might have a boil alert in your area. Sometimes most of the time, by the time you even find out about the boil alert, you may have already been drinking bad tap water. I try to drink just bottled water, and if I'm not going to drink bottled water, I try to filter everything just to be on the safe side. You can get bigger filter units that LifeStraw makes, or you can do the big Berkey. There's a few different brands that have really good filters. So you really want to make sure. Rabbit Peanut says, dehydrators are a mainstay for myself, allows me to reproduce, I'm not actually sure what that word was. Allows me to produce food for Mylar bags with the least a multiple shelf life. And Rabbit also, I know him, he does a lot of hunting, so he's doing a lot of dehydration for a lot of the meat, I'm sure, that he's taking down. And if you don't have a dehydrator and you want to learn how to smoke meats, you can do that online. You can learn how to set up a basic small teepee system, and you can smoke meat that'll last for quite a while. There's a lot of different preserving methods. These are all things that our ancestors were doing for centuries. And as we got more modern, I guess you would say, and electricity started coming into play, we stopped learning these techniques because we really didn't have a need to. A lot of people that still lived in very rural areas still practice a lot of the older techniques for a very long time. But people in the city, we've basically lost our ability to take care of ourselves outside of main systems for the most part. You know, most people are not trapping wild game, hunting, fishing, beyond sport. Instead of going to the grocery store, most people are not procuring their own food. They don't know how to forage. They don't know how to make a lot of medicines through the natural things you'll find wherever you might live. We just need to get back to self-sufficiency. And it's going to be a really bad time to figure it out that we need to get back to being self-sufficient after some type of a large-scale event. That would be tragic. That would be a major problem. So teach your kids now. Maybe you don't want to learn, but you know what? Teach your kids how to start a fire, how to make a good tinder bundle, how to, procure water, how to filter water. Teach them as much as you can. If you don't have those skills, send them to a school. Let them get some training. There's plenty of resources. If you guys are ever looking for good resources for live training, you can email me at info@thesurvivalsummit.com. Tell me what area you're in, and I'll try to figure out who the best instructor in your area might be. I highly recommend that you guys do live training. Now, that doesn't mean you can't learn from online training in Survival Summit. We have a ton of online training, everything from wilderness medical to escape and evasion to bushcraft, you name it. We have at least, I think it's 40 hours of instructional films. We have a lot. We have a lot of information where you can learn a lot from really, really good instructors. But you still want to do live training whenever possible. And even if, like I say all the time, if you watch a chapter or a part of a chapter from online training, go out and practice. Go out and practice in all kinds of weather. Get really proficient and then make it more difficult. Do it when it's windy and rainy and see how well you perform under duress, under not ideal conditions. That's going to make you better. It's going to make you better at everything that you're doing. Just like when you're at the range. If you're with the pew-pew and you're at the range, work up a sweat, do some push-ups, do some burpees, whatever you have to do to get your heart rate pumping, to get sweating. Those are going to be the real-world conditions if you ever get into an actual situation where you have to defend yourself. You're not just going to be in an air-conditioned, cool range just taking your time. You want to train like you fight all the time. And that includes everything with the 9 pillars of preparedness. You want to learn how to build a shelter. You want to learn how to start a fire. You want to be able to procure food. Just everything in the 9 pillars. You really, especially like medical training, you want to get really good at trauma care, whether that's taking a TECC or a TCCC course, or even just a Stop the Bleed course, or even just start with basic first aid. I think you can still get Stop the Bleed courses Some places still offer them for free. You might even have a local fire department that offers that training for free, where you don't have to pay for it. So it's not always about how much money you're going to spend to do this and that and to get what type of training. You got to start somewhere. And even if you have to start because you're on a limited budget, if you have to start at the bottom and you have to start with very limited resources, you still should, no matter what that looks like. Even if that means that you're trying to source the best sources on YouTube and learning as many skills as you can and going out and practicing those skills. Even if you have to buy cheap gear that may not be the best, at least you can still be learning skills. And then cut out some things in your life. Don't go to Starbucks. Stop eating fast food, which is good for you anyway, to not do that. Cut out as much as you can, and you'd be surprised. Most people, the average person in the United States would probably be surprised how much money they can save if they cut out a lot of the nonsense. Things that you just don't need. I mean, how many times have we, I say this because I do it all the time. My wife is probably listening and she's going to agree with this. I buy a lot of stuff from places that I probably don't need. I actually buy a lot of stuff from Amazon, which I probably shouldn't because I have my own website. But sometimes there's a lot of stuff that you're just not going to get anywhere else. You're not going to get it as cheap. You're not going to get it as fast. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes she does too, so she can't give me any grief over that. But you know, if I was on a really tight budget, I shouldn't be doing anything like that. I shouldn't be wasting money on things that are not absolutely necessary. Now, I know a lot of people are still strapped, so there may be people who really don't have any type of a budget. But there's guys that have gone through the dollar store and Walmart and showed you videos on how to get sometimes gear that's not really even what it's meant for, but you can make it work. There's always a way to make it work. You may have enough stuff in your house to make a makeshift bug out bag or something that'll help you cover those 9 pillars of preparedness. And again, if you guys are just joining in, the 9 pillars of preparedness, which I'm pretty sure I came up with that phrase, as long as Google and AI was correct and that no one else has used it. Those pillars are shelter, fire, water, food, medical, communication, signaling, land navigation, and personal protection. Never forget personal protection, your EDC. You should always have personal protection on you, no matter what that looks like. All right, let me flip back to the comments. Again, welcome everybody from TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and X and Twitch. If there is anybody here from Rumble, I'd love to see you in the chat. I don't know if I set that up properly. It might still be stuck on the wrong channel, and I didn't get any type of a notification, so I don't know for sure. Rabbit Peanut says, know how to preserve fat and keep salts. 2 major essential factors for long-term survival, especially if you do not procure your own food. Yeah, you know, when I was with Joshua Enyar, who's also known as the Gray-Bearded Green Beret, who's one of the best instructors, in my opinion, on the planet, we were doing a winter survival course that he was filming, and I was out in Maine with him in the middle of nowhere, and in a lot of his winter courses, they're rendering fat, because fat, especially in the wintertime, is an amazing source of energy. So you should 1,000,000% know how to preserve fat, how to render fat, how to keep salts, all those types of things. Rabbit Peanut says, when you watch survival shows, the tap out starts happening when the salt and fats in the body begin to become minimal. And that is absolutely correct. There's just so many times, you know, let's say, man, if you're trapping or trying to be a little careful what I say on some of the platforms, because I don't want them to shut the video down. I think this is a great live stream. But save all the fats. Don't throw them away. Don't throw away things that you might normally, obviously you want to get rid of the organs and things like that, but always, always save animal fat. And really start learning everything about hunting and trapping and fishing and foraging, and just get back to the natural way of life, because hopefully it never happens, but there may come a time where we have to be self-sufficient, where we're forced to. We may not have the option, so we want to be ready. And don't be afraid to have a lot of gear too. Just have it set up properly. Have your PACE plan, your primary, your alternate, your contingency, and your emergency. plan that now. Start planning that now. If you haven't started, start mapping it out. And again, the book, Pace Planning, you can find on the TikTok shop, Amazon, and our website. It's got a ton of framework, pretty much for every category in survival, that gives you examples of pace plans. And it'll really give you an amazing guideline, especially if you're new to this. You're not going to get inundated with, we're not teaching you how to build fires and shelters in the book. We're teaching you the framework for basic pace planning. And pace planning, in my opinion, is critical. It's super, super important. All right, this is probably going to be a relatively short live stream. I'm going to be taking off very soon. I want to get this cut up and put on Spotify tonight if possible. And I didn't forget to hit the record button, so I should be able to put it up on Spotify within the next hour or so. I'll try to do it before bedtime. And if you just joined us or you missed a lot of this live stream, you can watch it again on Facebook, X, YouTube. I don't think you can watch it again on TikTok, but I've been cutting up these live streams into smaller segments, 30 to 60 seconds, and I've been putting them out on social media. I still have about 40 that are going out within the next month or two, and I'll probably get another 30 or 40 from this live stream as well. But you can always see these live streams again on Facebook, X, or YouTube at a minimum. Or if you're driving to work, check out Spotify, The Survival Summit on Spotify. And you can listen and or watch, because these are uploaded as video podcast on Spotify. All right. Any questions, anyone? Anything you guys want to talk about other than that we just covered? Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I think this stream was very important. I think all these streams are very important. Some you might like a lot better than others. And you guys are welcome to send me suggestions if you want to talk about something specific. Just give me a couple days before the stream starts to give me ideas, because I have to take a lot of notes. I got to put a lot of stuff together so I can make my thoughts clear and concise and not ramble quite so much. My wife says occasionally I ramble on these live streams, which I'm okay with. But I'd rather be a little more concise and kind of get to the points and the information that I think you guys should have. All right. If that is it, I'm going to take off for the night, and we will be back this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, barring anything that might happen at work that could cause me to miss it. But I should be here this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, I will be, I believe, I'm going to be on vacation next week starting Thursday. And then, so I definitely won't be live streaming while I'm out of town, because my wife would probably murder me, because technically it's our honeymoon. So I don't think that would go over well if I tried to live stream from another country. She probably wouldn't appreciate that very much. And Tuesday, I guess it depends. If I'm still in Vermont Tuesday night, then I'll stream on Tuesday. If not, I might flip it and do it on Wednesday. We'll see what happens. All right. Until the next